Hello and welcome to the March or Die show today. Glad to have you joining the conversation. This is the show where we do our very best every single episode to give you both the perspectives and principles you need to march when it would be easier to stay where you are and die. And there are so many reasons in life to just stop moving forward. And this show is really about helping you have what you need to move forward, to take that next courageous step. So glad to have you joining us today. And I would encourage you, before we jump into this conversation, if you haven't subscribed to the show, go ahead and do that. Do it right now, wherever you're listening from. And then take some time, go over to YouTube, and you can find us there as well. Search for March or Die or the March or Die show, and you'll find us there. And again, it'd be great to have you join us there. Very excited about my guest today. Alfred Brenner is with us. Thanks,
yes,
man.
Sir. Thank you very much for having me out here.
All the
Appreciate
way from
it.
New Jersey.
New Jersey, yep.
We don't get many New Jersey people here.
I was about to ask that too.
not too
I was
many.
wondering if you had most from the East Coast. And then I used to get, ever since day one in the Marine Corps, you get crap for being from Jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And
I was asked the other day to do a speaking event in New Jersey.
Okay.
And with that came, next time you're in New Jersey, we'll set it up.
no
I was like,
way.
well, that would be the first time
Really?
I'll be in New Jersey.
Really?
Because I'm not going to be there.
No,
Because nobody goes to New Jersey.
Where was that? Do you know where was that?
I don't know where it was.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
I'll take a look.
Man, well,
Maybe
you have to
now
let
I
me
have a
know.
reason to go.
I
Now I
can
have a
just
reason to
stand
go.
in for you. You can
Yeah,
just let me know.
we'll do it.
Or if you do go, let me know. I'll hook you up, get you from the airport.
So New Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey. Yeah, it's just starting. We have a hint of snow tomorrow, so we'll see.
nice.
Yeah, some of my buddies out in the Midwest and somewhere up by Chicago, they already
Yeah.
had it, so we'll see how it happens. But
Yeah.
I love
Good.
it. I was born and raised there, so
Yeah.
it was home. We were in California for a while. It was stay
Yeah.
here, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's where I live right
on the
now. I
beach.
live in California, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just
Excellent.
visit Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? You sound like you're from California. You have that vibe.
Well, I was raised there, and
Excellent.
Yeah, but yeah, California's awesome. New
Where
Jersey,
at in California?
Southern.
Like
Yeah.
San Diego
Marietta,
County or Marietta?
north of San Diego, yeah.
Yeah, we were in Temecula for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, because obviously in Pendleton.
Yeah.
We did the Oceanside thing
Yeah.
as, the boots, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
once I got married, I was able to live out in Oceanside, had our little apartment. But then when we came back from deployment, we decided, you know what, we're going to get up to the bigger
Yeah.
houses, go the 45 minutes out there. So
Yeah, live where normal people live.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of Oceanside.
Wine country. It's beautiful.
That's
out
cool,
there.
man. Well, good. Well, it's good to have you down here. And I know it's a quick trip, but thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Marine Corps veteran, Afghanistan, Purple Heart recipient, and what we're going to talk about probably a lot today is also a canine handler.
Yes.
Which is unique in the Marine Corps.
It is.
Less unique in some of the other services, but definitely unique in the Marine Corps. But man, let's start at the beginning. What was your motivation? I get asked this question, 1,000 times a year. Why'd you go in the Marine Corps?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a different reason. What was your motivation for going into the Marine Corps? And then what was your expectation going in? What were you hoping to see happen in your life?
Interesting. Yeah. To be honest with you, I didn't come from a military background.
Yeah.
So some of the guys, they grew up military,
Yeah.
mom, dad, or grandpa. And I didn't have that. But I also was always pushed to college stuff. I went to Catholic school my whole life.
Yeah.
So it was always like education.
Yeah.
There was a direct route.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when I hit, high school, same thing. They were pushing college,
Right.
and I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I was like, you know what? Let me just see what's out there. I wound up bumping a recruiter as like a sophomore, junior, but then I brushed it off. But then it got serious, so I went to the recruiting office.
Yeah.
He sold me the package. He sold me that.
Did you ever think about the other services?
Never.
Never.
Because I never thought about the military in general. I was just like, let me just consider the military.
Right.
And I think the Marines were just like the ones that were open. You know what I mean? It was like the only ones there. So the guy gives like a
Don't
joint.
take anybody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's the only dude working. So we were talking and, he's got the 13-week thing, say goodbye to your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Here's the uniform.
Yeah.
And he's just sold this package of like tier one, like top thing.
Yeah.
I thought they were like
Yeah.
special forces of
Right.
the Navy or something.
Right.
I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
But I was like pushed myself. Like, again, everyone always like asks, well, do you think it's because of Catholic school? Like, no, I think it was just always my personality, but to always like push the envelope,
Yeah.
right? Like if someone's like, do this, I'm always like, let's think outside the box
Right.
and do something better. So that really pushed me to go into the Marine Corps, and I fell in love with it. I just loved the structure, but the esprit de corps, all that stuff, the stuff that everyone falls in love with.
Yeah.
And, it just progressed from there. It was something that became easy because I was just naturally good at, physical stuff.
Right.
Following orders is basic. So,
Right.
became very, good at it.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
How do you become a canine handler? Again, that's a really unique thing to me.
It is, yeah. And a lot of people will see it and then it's like, oh, I want to do that. And, kudos to you. And it's just like, even like local PD, it's tough. You have to be like a ground cop first. And it's similar to like us. We were very fortunate. And I don't know if it was the timeline that we joined, but we went from all of the training, MCT to we're military policemen by trade.
Okay.
And then they have your specialties. Like you have like CID, NCIS, SWAT people, and then canine.
Right.
So they sold canine at MP school. They're like, hey, we need to take volunteers. You got to be selected top tier. Again, you have to be top of your class.
That gets you every time.
Yeah, they're like, okay. I'm like, all right, that sounds good.
I want to do it.
Yeah, you're the best of the best. So I'm like, all right, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a dog growing up, so I was scared. But I just was like pushing myself, And they're saying, they treat you good. They treat the dogs better than regular people and all that. So so you volunteer. It's a volunteer only program. And then once you get selected, you go down to canine school, and then they push you through that training. And if you decide to, you can go through some more training. You can be in for almost 2 years and just do nothing but training. It's a very rigorous program. But I know some of the other services, it's more like local PD where you have to like be an MP first. You work for a couple years because it's an inter-service school. So down in San Antonio, Texas, they have the dog school and you're with everybody, Army, Navy, Marines. Yeah. And, we get to talk. Don't get sloppy down there. We got it at Fort Leonard Wood at the Army, and then
don't get sloppy.
Yeah, don't get sloppy. You stay in line, and then you go down the Air Force. It's even worse. So we had to assimilate in a way where we all had to like treat each other as equals, but at the same time, as Marines, they're like, hey, keep running, run faster, push yourself harder. So yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, the Marines is a little bit different. Nowadays, I'm not too sure how they do it. Cause again, with the global war going down and, the numbers have dwindled, I think it's a little bit harder to get into. So
that's crazy. My son is a police officer in Marietta actually. And he went through the certification for, so he can work with the dog training program, right? So he wears a suit, and they bite him and stuff.
Yeah, the bite suit. Yeah.
He's always coming home, and he has his own home. But when I see him, I'm like, "Good night, you're bruised, your arms are, what's going on?" I was like, "I just working with the dogs."
You get dinged up.
It's pretty rigorous.
Yep. Yeah. Even just like accidental, they'll nick at you and stuff. And I was very fortunate. I never had like a big bite, That's why everyone looks at my arm and they're like, oh, did you get a chunk of the dog bit your arm off? And I'll like joke like, yeah, but no, some guys are very fortunate and they, they'll get bit, but it could be a lot worse. Yeah. But it's fun stuff. It's always good getting someone in a bite suit too. You're like, hey, you want to get bit?
Right. Yeah. And then you ended up in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And you wrote a book about that experience and the experience of coming home.
Yes.
Surviving grief.
Surviving with grief.
Surviving with grief. I get that wrong every time. Surviving with grief.
Everybody does.
Yeah. And that's about, really, it's about a couple things, I guess. Your dog, Grief.
Yes. Yep.
That was the name of your dog.
Yes.
And then just that process of going and coming home. Jump in there wherever you want to, but getting the call to go to, people who haven't experienced this don't understand it, but for most people, I can't speak for you, most people, Marines, getting the call to go into a combat environment is not something that's scary. It's something that's very exciting because that's what we train for. That's what we prepare for. I was part of the initial push into Iraq in 2003. And I remember people asking like, are you scared? Are you nervous? Well, I'm like, man, I feel like I got called up to the Super Bowl. I feel like this is the big leagues. This is what I've been planning for and preparing for and training for my entire life. So no, I'm just excited about it. But then the realities of that environment also, come down on you. So talk about that a little bit, getting the call, knowing you were going and the preparation and then getting there. Yeah,
it was interesting. It actually starts day one in K-9 school where not day one, but like right before I was graduating. And I remember getting my orders, you get, just like every school you check out of, right? Yeah. You get your orders packet, tell you where you're going. Yeah. And I'm standing next to a corporal next to me. He's at Soups course, another class. And he looks at my orders and he's like, this makes no sense. He's like, you usually go to MP battalion, you're working with dogs. He's like, you're going to 1 MEF expeditionary force. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And they were just standing up these units, these large things to be a part of the MEF, where these dog handlers would just train and deploy. They would do nothing else. Because typically back in the Iraq days, you'd have guys work the road, and then they would go have to work with these infantry units, conventional, special stuff. But now they're like, hey, look, this is such a hot thing. We're just going to train these guys on desert all day, send them over, and then do a rotation between 1, 2, and 3 MEF. So he sees my orders, and he's like, you're going to the MEF. Like, you're just deploying. I'm like, what? This is amazing. So I was the very first K-9 handler to go to Camp Pendleton, and then we stood this unit up. They started from scratch and got the dogs in. And then we were all supposed to go to Iraq in 2009. And as you know a little bit about Iraq, that's when it started to like really dip down 7, 8, 9. So it was that crazy, just typical military stuff. It was, we already had plane tickets for our dependents to go home if they wanted to, or moved out of our apartment.
Yeah.
Literally go in to work on Tuesday morning. I remember it was dark and they were like, hey, all 30 of you are not going to Iraq anymore. You're going to Afghanistan in 6 months.
Right.
So they all changed and they sent like 4 of them. And then the rest of us just got ready for Afghanistan. And I remember the first day. It was like getting to that, that was that first morning. I actually was on kennel duty because, again, my wife went home. I was sitting at the kennels with my dog for 3 days. Then everyone starts coming in, and then we get loaded up on the bus. We get a motivated speech from the CO, battalion commander.
Yeah.
I swear I write about it, but it's like it would look like a varsity football team won the state championship, right? Like you said, we're all motivated. We're screaming. We're punching each other.
Yeah.
A couple of the guys who deployed earlier, like they're just sitting there with their head backs, like, just chilling. You know what I mean? Like they're salty because most of them never deployed before.
Yeah.
We're all junior kids, like 19, 20.
So in 2003, when I deployed, there were no salty combat veterans. No one had ever been to combat.
Right. Yeah, it was the first push.
Yeah. So all of us were that kind of excited and naive.
Yeah, I would say naive, right? Yeah.
But when they rotate back, it was a completely different story.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Then the guys coming back, you can tell the difference. It's like the ones are all shaking their boots and the other kids are just sleeping on the combat drop, you know? Like, So no, you're right. It was we were all very naive to that point, not knowing the realities of war, but we were, in a sense, I think it helps because it pushes you really, to that extra, limit to where you're just going to go head first into it, You don't have any trauma to either like push you back or hold you back.
Right.
And then like again, I talk about it, but it's just like one step after another, it just hits you. And then it's just like one building block of trauma or like setbacks or like, things we have to overcome. And next thing you know, you're in a seasoned, 6-month deployment. Yeah. You come back and you're not that kid anymore. Yeah. You're now a man. Yeah. And that's the change that everyone goes through.
Yeah. That's incredible. What were some of maybe the unexpected things or we talk about trauma a lot. We use that word and it's used pretty loosely, but some of the things that changed your outlook on life. And I was asked this question years ago. How did 9/11 change your life? Right. Mm-hmm. So people have asked that question and I said, well, it changed everything about my life. And there was an older guy who heard me say that. He's like, what did it change? It didn't change anything for you. I'm like, no, literally it changed everything about my life. It changed where I live, what I do, how I view the world, how I feel about the things in the world. It changed everything, not because of 9/11, but because of the events that followed that led us to Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And
how old are you? If you don't mind me asking, how old are you in 9/11?
I was already in the Marine Corps, so I was probably 22.
That's even tougher.
Yeah,
you were
I was on the
there.
Eastern Range. I was on the range, So it wasn't 9/11 per se, but it was the events that followed. And I think, for a lot of people, it's that it changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's like sad that we forget that, my dad was a New Jersey Task Force 1 search and rescue. He did structural engineering stuff.
Yeah.
And he gives talks sometimes and he introduces me because I'll do a talk with him. And he always likes to caveat with it by saying, we're on vacation. He gets his beeper goes off and he had to rush in through the tunnels, going in there with the task force team. And that's what started the war, and then he kind of bridges into what happened to me 15 years later. Yeah. And it really hits because a lot of people forget that even happened, right? Yeah. Like we're just talking about, we left Afghanistan straight away and all this stuff.
Yeah. And, well, there's a reason we were there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There was a reason we were there. Yeah. And then, that's like you said, that's a whole different story, but it's definitely a lot when you don't realize what came before everything too, like you said. Like we had that same thing where the guys before us were such like going in Iraq, and then some of the guys, they would tell us the old stories about Afghanistan, and just passing that tradition down really helped us become better, not only Marines but just dog handlers in general. So
and it's a lot to process. We're not really prepared to process what you experience in those environments. It's crazy. Man, there's so many things. One of the things you write about, there's a statement that you made in your book. One October night would start the longest mission of their lives. Can you talk about that a little bit and what that means? And again, kind of how that frames a lot of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it was, so we went through most of the deployment by now. We've seen a lot, from your typical pop shot that kind of makes the hair stand up your back of your neck, and then to other things like being next to someone who was killed. And for me, I was very blessed because I heard stories of my buddies jumping out of a helo and getting shot at immediately, where I was like a gradual, evolution of things.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. No, what's a dog handler doing
in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan.
Yeah, most of the time, mine just made.
I should have started there before we got to the next part.
Right. Mine usually just made everyone feel better. But but their jobs are to save the lives behind us. So like we go into any area that's uncleared or unsecured, we're searching for IEDs.
Yeah.
Most of them. We went over there with the largest number of dogs since Vietnam for our deployment in 2010.
Kidding. Wow.
Yeah, because they back then they just threw them all in the plane, and so we were the largest number. Because before that in Iraq they were doing like 4, 6s, and 8s, but now we went over there with 30 something dogs, and there was I think 2 that were drug dogs. So like we did bring 2. They had to check if guys were smuggling stuff or stuff on base. But yeah, most of the threat was IEDs.
Yeah.
So our job was to be out in front of patrols. Most of the stuff I did, because I had a patrol explosive dog, so he was trained to attack and find explosives. So I would do like a lot of close quarter building stuff. Like if I was paired with a buddy who was an off leash dog, he'd send his dog out on radios 100 meters, and I would do like the little alleys, and but yeah, our job was just to protect the guys behind us, and that's what I usually tell people. Their job is to take care of the mission.
Yeah.
Our job is to protect them.
Okay.
And then we search areas. I'll throw them down into a little alley, make sure it's good and all that.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate. I didn't have, luckily any fines, and I luckily didn't have any, issues where somebody next to me was killed. Like if I didn't, that's like the worst thing you could do is go over an area, be like, oh, it's safe. And then that's the biggest burden we carry. You're walking on a road, you're like, yeah, it's safe. And then one person dies. The worst story, going into that October night, the worst thing that I think ever happened for us was we were in a mission, and it was the longest one. I called the wife, in the morning, and I said, hey, I'm going to be going out for a while, can't talk, and we get out there, we do a couple searches. We hear on the radio they found an IED, so they're going to go do a controlled det. So we're hanging out. I took a picture of it on my phone from a distance, and we're hanging out. So we go up the road, I search another building, we go to another one. Here again, they found another one. Because mind you, this is a massive, evolution that we're doing, this huge clearing operation. They like made the internet or something, it's history. And there's multiple units with us, like Marine tanker units, like the Afghan army's with us. I was with the army at the time, the actual army, big striker group. And there's people finding IEDs all over the place. So we're sitting down, I'm against the back of a wall. We're waiting for another controlled det. There's a kid right next to me. He's sitting as close as you are here. And he's playing with my dog. He's jumping all over his lap, and we're hanging out. We're just talking about his dog back home and having like the best moment, just escaping reality, right? And then they say, hey, we're going to do the controlled det. Everyone stand up. We're going to get back safer distance. So I go to stand up, put my pack on, grab grief, and I took only 3 steps to my left, and then an explosion goes off. And I just feel it hitting the back of my neck, and I just see the debris like coming in front of me. I turn around, and Grief's retractable leash is just extended, and he's missing in this cloud of smoke. And I just look, and I'm just like looking for him, and then I find him, and he's just standing still, like statue. And I check him, he's fine. But then I turn around, and there's this giant crater in the ground, and there's a kid wailing his arms and legs, and he's screaming with blood coming down his face. And I'm like, this makes no sense. Like IEDs blow things out, they don't suck them in, you know? And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, well, he's moving his arms and legs, he's got those, he's breathing, he's screaming. Like I'm gonna post up and have to see him. My brain just goes into like ambush mode. So I'm waiting, I'm just waiting to get attacked. I'm just, cursing the day, like why is this happening? And then they're like, hey, we got to get him out of here. We're gonna go do get Grief to search for a helo to land. And I'm checking him. He's fried. We were just blown up. His ears are shook. He's not listening to me, but I'm like, hey, look, 6 feet are going to trip something better than 2. Let's just walk around in a circle. Let's kick rocks over. And I just did this spiral in this field for this helo to land. And as I'm doing that, there's 2 gentlemen on top of a building, and they're lowering the body of Specialist Stephen DuPont, the kid who was sitting right next to me. And he was on an IED.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that image. And of course they tell everyone to look away, and they, we got him safely out of there, and the other kid who was in the hole. Then one of the sergeants comes up to me, and of course we got that question that a canine handler never wants to get is, hey man, why didn't Grief smell the IED? And meanwhile my head goes a million miles an hour, and I just looked past him, and I thought, there's nothing I could say to, get out of this situation. And the guys suffer with that tremendously. Like sometimes the trauma from survivor's guilt and all that stuff is worse than the actual trauma. And I knew for a lot of other reasons why I can never dwell in that, because the only thing I could take away from it was he was sitting there, my dog was playing on him. We were relaxing, his last moments in life were just enjoying peace. He was escaped from reality at that moment. And it was at that time where I just realized this is at any second it's going to be over. But that was the worst thing that can happen as a dog handler. You get that question.
It's crazy you say that because survivor's guilt is something, again, we talk about a lot, and in the work that we do, we talk about it often. But most of the time, when someone talks about having survivor's guilt, it's why was it him and not me? Mm-hmm. It's kind of that conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
It's why was it, I jumped in the back Humvee and he was in the front Humvee and his Humvee hit an IED. Could have just as well been me. It's conversations like that. But what you're talking about is it was our responsibility to make sure that didn't happen, and it happened.
Yes.
And so that's a different level. That's a different, how do you think through that, or how do you process that?
I mean, for me, in the moments, and you could probably attest to this, or anybody hearing this can too, like in the moments, you lock it away.
Yeah.
Like you bury it.
You've got a job to do. You need to move on.
Yes. Yeah. I still had a job to do. Grief was still, even though he was fried, I still felt like we could just still be there. I was an asset. So you definitely, you put it away. You lock it up. And then like later on, as I started to dwell into the story and trying to put it to paper, those feelings, they ate at me, for sure. And then you can get stuck, and to me, we're going to probably touch this in a little bit more, but that is the devil talking. Like that is evil. That is lies.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing you could have done. You couldn't have changed anything.
No.
But you take that on yourself. And
it's so easy too, though. Like it's so easy to do that because the devil's a liar, like you hear that thought in your head and then you go, it's your fault. And then it's so much easier to just admit it because then you can hurt yourself and then you get these other feelings. But in that moment, I just was like I said, I wanted to say so many things, right? Like we're trained to say stuff like, these dogs are proven not perfect. There's a million different situations. Things can happen.
Right.
But I just looked past his head and, I just was kind of like, no. And then, we had a job to do. We kept pushing on. And then after that, it squashed, right? Like, and it's not like he came at a place of like, I want to, he wasn't mad or anything. He was more curious. Like I saw him run on top of him, but realistically, that never would have happened, And again, I'm not going to search every inch of every place because 200 people just walked over it.
There are 1,000 reasons, right?
Yeah,
like 1,000 reasons.
And you've heard it. Like these things, you could have 12 people walk over something and then like that one person makes the dust go off and it goes. And it's a really unbelievable thing. But aside from all the technology they made and all these different things that they did, the dogs are still number one because there's so many things the dogs can do that like technology can't.
Right.
So I'm not here to sell the dog program. Everyone knows it's amazing, but
it's fascinating.
It's a tough thing.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's everyone's fear. And I didn't and it was funny. Like I didn't get through do a lot. Like I don't have the best war stories and you don't want them, right? Like nobody wants great war stories.
Right. But you want to have survived them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And like when I look back, it's like every little thing that happened to me was like an example of something that could have happened. Like no one ever wants that to happen to you and it happened to me.
Yeah.
I didn't like some guys were in firefights every day for 6 months.
Yeah.
I had like one time there's pop shots and I was like, we should write about this, like,
right.
So I was able to experience like different facets of war that kind of like touched me differently and whether I experienced them or saw them. Because I think that stuff's really important because it's sometimes overlooked. It's the small details, right? Like the kid who was next to someone who was killed and then like he's way more effective than it was. I had a roommate in the hospital down in Maryland who was there much longer than a WMPT because he was suffering with mental stuff, So, and that was one of my biggest things, just trying to have this conversation about it.
Yeah, that's good. And it's important that we write about it and talk about it so that we can help those who have experienced those and are forgotten often.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happened after that? So you went through that experience and then continued through that deployment.
Yeah, so right after that, they got him out of there, the two kids, and then we pushed on. They're like, hey, it's a bad day. We found so many IDs. We just lost somebody. We're going to try to bunker down in this like fortressy looking building for the night.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's go. I searched a little bit. Grief was shot. His ears were gone. He was discombobulated. And I was like, well, I can still be an asset. Like I'm trained to see things, I can pick up on them. If it's big enough, he might perk his head up. So we were still searching around. We get to this big building and there's just a big double doors in the front. Like it looks just like your metal doors right here in the front. And it's just like, it's like weird. But then we're like, all right, we're going to go around back and there's one single metal door. And there at this point, I'm with, and this makes no sense why we're all together, but I was with the sergeant major of the unit, the captain, the CO of the unit, his medic, and like the two lead Afghan nationals. It was like all of the like top tier people in one area, which is a no-no. And then so the sergeant major's like, I'm hopping this wall. So he hands me his rifle, puts his K-bar in his mouth, climbs the wall. We boost him over it. He gets into this unsecure building, and I'm just like, I'm not going to tell him what to do.
Yeah,
But immediately I'm like, it's probably not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
No. And then so he's in there just doing his thing, and then the captain's like, all right, I'm going to break down this door. And he starts peeling the mud away, and he's yanking on this door. He's peeling on it. Then he goes, hold my rifle. So I have two extra rifles, my rifle, a pistol, and a dog.
Yeah.
He's pulling on this door. And then as he's yanking on it, the Afghans are getting upset. They're like, oh, don't let me get out. And then we're like, why? Why would we not want to do this? And they said, we can't damage their property. So it started to get weird. So I was like, fine, we'll take a picture of it. So I took a picture of the door. Because I always had a camera for like our finds, if I ever had them. I had finds. And take the picture of the door. He's yanking on it, throws the door down. It's on the ground. And I take a picture of the door after he killed it. And then the sergeant major comes around the front. So it's like the timing is perfect, right? So he's about to enter. Sergeant major comes around the front. And then I start to walk towards the sergeant major, hand back his rifle. And before I took my third step, everything just went white. And it just felt like I was flipping through the air.
Yeah.
It's like a high pitch, like ringing sound, and flying, flipping. Like it felt like I was flying. And I knew I died. I was like, if I had to imagine what dying was like, it was like everything went like this. And I'm floating to the air, they're getting the trumpet all tuned up. It sounded like the music playing. I'm like, that was the easiest thing that ever happened to me. And I'm so happy, And then like this weird thought of like just mystery goes away. And then I feel like a thought coming in my head. And I'm like, no, I was just hit by an IED and like I'm alive. Then like I feel the flipping stop a little bit. So I'm like, great, now I'm just a torso. I know what they do to people. I just flipped like 100 times in the air. So I'm just like waiting to like bleed out.
Yeah.
So I make my first phone call. I'm like, if I'm calling anybody, it's God. I'm just like, God, I love you. I'm ready to come home. Like, let's do this. I just pray, you got to do that. And I'm praying a little bit more. And then I hear voices. And then it's like, hey, who's hit? Who's down? And they start, patching me up. I hear, oh, Brenner's down. They start patching me up. Yeah. And I just started like feeling them like rip my arms around, and I could feel them ripping my boots off. So I'm like, wow, I actually have like, I have legs, I have arms.
I think you're still together.
Yeah. I'm still like, I got everything. And then I'm like, oh boy, like now I'm hurt. Now I'm gonna be in trouble. So I'm like, oh God, I hope my wife doesn't kill me. Like I started going down the list of like prayers. Like my priorities were changing, right? Yeah. Like it was call God.
It's telling that you were afraid of your wife as you were lying
I'm
there.
just like, oh boy. Like, cause last time I talked to her was 8 hours ago, being like, oh, I'll see you soon.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Everything's gonna be fine. Don't worry. Yeah. And then, I'm getting patched up, and then the guy, the medic, who's again the best medic in our unit, he's patching me up, and he's like, oh dude, relax. Like you're going to be fine. And I'm like, bro, have you seen any war movie ever? Like that's all they tell people. They're, they're bleeding out. Like, you'll be fine. Yeah. No, I'm dying. Right. So, and I was joking with this kid, like on the ground, and, it's just miracle after miracle, just like to have the brain and be able to talk to him and joke. And then I just hear them being like, okay, call the 9 line, and they call it in, and I'm not gonna pretend like I know a 9 line right now, but they call it in, and I hear 1 wounded and 1 killed, and immediately I'm just like, well, it's definitely that captain, he kicked the door down, whatever, and then I didn't hear one person call out for my dog, like no one said like go help Grief, or like Grief come, they know how to handle them, and I knew right then he was killed, so. That killed me. That was the worst part. I'm laying on the ground, and not like I start crying about it. Those emotions come later. But I knew it was him that was killed. Yeah. And they patched me up. I hear the helicopter do its fake landing, then come back out, and then I'm like, "What is going on?" Comes back in, bump, 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 bump again, gets me on there, and then next thing you know, I hear absolute quiet in Bagram Airport. They got me in there, they wheeled me in, and I hear the doctors whispering, and my staff sergeant was there, came in, they met me there. He actually flew in. Incidentally, he flew in to the exact area for a different reason, but he happened to be there when this all went down. He like got there, and they were screaming at the talk, like, oh, someone just got hurt. So he flew out there and got my dog, and they brought him back, and then they called my wife, which was the biggest mistake I think we made the whole deployment, because he's like, hey, do you want to talk to your wife? And I'm like, probably not. Like
not right now.
Right? Like I don't think right so. Yeah. But that was the biggest mistake, right? Because I talked to her on a sat phone for 6 months, right? So when you hear another voice over the phone for the first time on that weird number, she lost it. So that was the worst part. But we can't change Pat. Like we can't ever go back. You could always be like, oh, I
people do the best they can with the information they have in the moment. And,
it just shook her. It shook her world, because she got that call from somebody else, and Yeah, and incidentally, she was out to dinner with my dad and my family for his birthday. So it was weird how they were all together, right? Because they would have only notified her, and it was they were all a lot of little miracles that lined up for sure. So
let's take maybe 2 steps back and talk about your relationship with your dog, because again, I've been told by handlers that it's a very close relationship. I think that's hard for people to understand, like to grasp. When did the 2 of you start working together? What was that relationship like?
Yeah, it was interesting. He wasn't my initial dog, to be honest. Like we all got there, and the dogs were coming in. We were the first unit to get like set up, and like 3 came off the plane, and they were like, "Here, handle this one." My buddy handled this other one, and I had this like little tiny shepherd thing, and my little buddy, my buddy was smaller. So anyway, I think we switched just based off the side. He had this big black and tan shepherd that was pulling him all over, so we switched, and then I wound up with Grief, this big black and tan shepherd, and he was a cool dog, like real scary looking.
Did you name him?
No, we don't. And that's the thing. Everyone's always like, how'd you come up with the name? And I never would name a dog. That's the worst dog name in history, And we don't know why. I mean, I'm joking. I'm like, well, maybe they just called him Grief because of all the grief he caused the trainers.
He was causing some grief.
He was because he sucked. Like he was horrible. But the problem was he was too smart, right? And he was a stubborn German Shepherd from Germany. And so it was a long road initially because I didn't know how to handle a dog. We were new people, And he was a new dog. He was a puppy. So it took a while to kind of like learn each other. And I didn't know that, but until you actually deploy with your dog, that's when it clicks. I would see the older guys, the vets come back, and they'd be walking with their dog like right next to them. They're loving on each other. And my dog's like, I hate you, and I never understood it.
Right.
And my staff sergeants would be like, go pull your dog, go play with him, go train with him, go rub him, go groom him. And we're like, why?
Yeah.
We didn't understand that it was a whole more thing. And when you're laying next to them on the side of the road, for 3 months at a time, and you live together and you're going through stuff and you experience stuff just like guys would, that bond is like overnight. Like it just clicked. I saw it like after 2 weeks of being there, he'd listen to everything I said. He was curling up on me on the bed. It was a cool experience, but
it's, I hear police officers talk about this a lot, and that's who I've talked to about it is just how close it is, because it's 24 hours a day. It's going into the worst environments that really you wouldn't go into with even a coworker probably, but you're taking, your dog into these environments or sending them into these dangerous environments and doing it together. Man, all of that happens. And then you came home and you were physically injured. And so you're dealing with all of that, but there is almost a relief that comes with coming home in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But then that turns into something very different.
Oh yeah.
Talk about that kind of reintroduction back to your family
life,
and regular life.
Yeah. It was a definitely weird, like it wasn't the homecoming we imagined, right? Like I know me and my wife joke about it all the time. Of course, obviously none of that we do is funny, but we try to make everything funny, and we wanted to have the wait to get off the bus, and hug and kiss, and next she comes in a yellow ICU gown, and I'm just laying there like, just get out of surgery. So the whole thing was like tough to absorb and stomach, and we wound up experiencing it day by day. So the initial seeing her was unbelievable. Seeing my family, my mom and dad, brothers and sisters, they came down, and we got to see them in waves because of ICU initially. And then once we got able to get, I guess, better, I was promoted to the 5th floor, which was like the VIP floor, where you can like be more normal, have visitors, no limitations on people. All the volunteers came through, celebrities, which I never saw because I was always in surgery.
They're going to somebody else's
literally. No, I was always in surgery. It was every Tuesday and Thursday they would do these like, we're going to put you under so we can clean your wounds, and then that's when like Jack Black would come in. And so I missed them all except for I think Miss Florida 2009 or something. It was that. So and it was a funny story. You might appreciate this as a Marine, but I just got out of surgery. It was right before my family came actually, and the Commandant and the Sergeant Major in Marine Corps are doing their rounds. They just got
Those
there.
are the celebrities you get to see.
Yeah, right. Immediately. And they're doing their Purple Heart rounds, right? So they're going in, giving out Purple Hearts to people as they come in. Yeah. And I just got hurt, right? It was my second day there. He comes in, this tall white guy, and with, the token Sergeant Major. And they come in together, and he's like, hi, I'm the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And I go, no, you're not. And he's like, well, yes, I am. Silly, there's Sergeant Major Kent. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but you're not the commandant. Amos and Conway. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
They did a switch over that same week.
Yeah.
And we don't know. Like I'm over and I'm with the Army on a deployment.
Yeah.
So they did a switch over. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm telling him, you're not the real, like, you're not sending a stand-in for me. Like and he's like, no, we did a switch over like 5 days ago.
That's funny.
Yeah. So like 5 days ago, they did the switch over. I tried to pull it over. I'm like, you're not telling this corporal anything.
That's funny.
Yeah. So he gave me his coin.
And Sergeant Major Kent was the Sergeant Major?
It was Sergeant Major Kent still. Yeah. And then
he's
I
awesome.
think Conway was before Amos, because then it was Amos that I took a picture with. Yeah. So
Sergeant Major Kent's a good friend of our organization. He's been really involved with us.
Really? Yeah. He seems like such an amazing guy. I met him for 5 minutes.
He's amazing. I could tell you stories all day, but there's not anyone that I've ever met in the Marine Corps that loves Marines more than Sergeant Major Kent.
Really?
Loves Marines. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's a cool experience.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. And then I remember
maybe not as good as Miss Florida 2009, but
no one cares about that. No one cares about that. So then they were cool enough, like you said. It's interesting you brought that up, because I do remember he came back around like another time 2 weeks later, and I had a Marine Corps flag that everyone was signing. And he came in, he's like, hey, Devil Dog, let me sign your flag. And he came in and he signed my flag. Cool. And
Very cool.
So it was really cool. But great people. But I didn't get to see many celebrities. But getting back was interesting because there was surgeries, a lot of rehab. And then it was like progressions, I got to a certain point, and then I had, so like my arm was blown in half from the IED. So there was a chunk missing out of it, and they were back in the day, they would just cut your arm off. But now they have this special surgery where they take parts of your body and they put it on this part to save it. It was this long 12-hour surgery, incidentally on the Marine Corps birthday. And, the big team comes out and they're like, hey, we're about to put you under for like 16 hours. You may not come out with an arm. And I'm like, well, happy birthday. Let's do it, Wow. So I wake up back in the ICU. So it was like, 10 steps up, 20 steps back. And it was just one thing after the next. And then finally get out of there. Luckily, I got to keep my arm. It's a long process. And then I get to finally leave my room. I get the motorized chair. I finally get to scoot around.
Sure.
And then we get to see the lobby for the first time. And it was weird being out in public again. But the problem was, I think I was so stimulated by the ins and outs of surgeries, copious amounts of medication, the highs and lows of just being, with family, and then knowing that your brothers are still over there too. I struggled with that because I got a couple phone calls from, my staff sergeant, who's the kennel master. He would call and check in. People would visit, but then that was hard too. Like thinking, I would sit there and be like, oh, they're still over there.
Why am I not there? Yeah.
And I'm mad that I'm even sitting here, whether I'm hurt or not. Like I didn't care. And then I find out, he calls me. He's like, hey, dude, we just saw Marky Mark. He's like, Mark Wahlberg came to the kennels. And I'm like, you're seeing celebrities in Afghanistan, and I'm missing them in the.
But I saw the comment.
And that was a real thing. They actually got to see. He was doing a little tour or something, and they put him in a bite suit. Yeah, have you ever met him?
I haven't. No.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely short. So that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard. Cool dude, but short. Yeah. I've seen him. Yeah. But it was a good experience, and it got to about 33 days. So they said, "Hey, you're gonna go to a rehab center in Virginia. We'll send you down there." And I'm like, "I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going home for Christmas." And I was like, "How do we get home?" And they're like, "For one, get out of that chair. Get out of your motorized chair. You got to learn to walk. Do other stuff." So we just turned it up. The next day I pushed off the thing and just started walking. And, you get that fire in you, know? And when there's goals and there's things to look forward to, it was so easy. I told people, like, getting back physically was so easy. And then once you hit this plateau, you're there. And then everyone pats you on the back. You get the parade. You get to walk. You get the independence.
And then it's over.
And then there's nothing but the valley below you. And that's okay. But initially, I didn't realize that. And then I started to walk through that stuff, and I would get stuck in the mud. And I would just get distracted, because then everything just starts to disseminate. And then you start to think oh, okay, well, I could just do this, go to school. Okay, well, I have a win here and I feel good. But then this roller coaster just hits. And then there's just no way to regain that part back unless you have it set straight. You know? It's tough. And that's why a lot of guys, when they get out, they struggle. And I'm not even talking about guys with injuries. I'm not talking about guys who've seen stuff. It's just the smallest thing about not feeling a sense of purpose. And no matter what you hear or read, it always falls back on that, is having a sense of purpose. I'm sure you've read it. Your program speaks heavily on it with men and not having a purpose to lead. And it's extremely important for us as men to be able to have that. Otherwise you fall apart. There's nothing in it. And when your whole identity was that in your formidable years of your life, and then that goes away, you get the DD-214, which is cool, and you get the awards and the parades, but then once that's over,
who am I?
What do I,
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. And for me, one of the clearest pictures of this is, we talk about veteran suicide and the suicide epidemic and all these things. And so the programs and the conversations and all the stuff that's focused on ending veteran suicide, it's all preventative. So it's, lock up the guns and lock up the medication and be careful about this and watch this and here are the signs. And all those things are important. And I'm not down on any of those things. Sometimes intervention is what needs to happen. But to me, that's the end of the road. And you need to get back to establishing an identity that's outside of the military. Because when you have a clear identity, and as as a Christian, I would say an identity in relationship with Christ, well, that identity then allows me to have a purpose. And then if I have a purpose, then I have hope. And then if I have hope, well, then I can move forward. And so without identity and purpose and hope, the only thing left is to say there's nothing here, and my life has no meaning. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that challenge, I came home from Iraq. I was, in combat. 30 days later, I was out of the Marine Corps. I went to work at a church. I've told the story a lot. I went to work at a church, which is a really soft landing, right? And then the bottom fell out of my life because of exactly that. I wasn't wounded. I had a good family. I had a good community to come back to, but I had no idea who I was or what I was supposed to be doing now or what does this look like. I decided to go into the Marine Corps when I was 14. I went through, the process of getting into the Marine Corps. I went to officer candidate school. I went to infantry officer course. I did all this training before I went into the Marine Corps. So like my whole life was about that. And then it was all gone. And then you go, well, what now? And then you start to have those thoughts that you talked about earlier where the devil says you'd be better off if you weren't here and other people would be better off if you weren't here. And yeah, you're exactly right. You go into that deep valley. You don't even know how you got there or why.
You get stuck. And like you said, and it sounded like you were almost saying like it was easy. It was good, right? And like we don't recognize it at first because we might be, too consumed with the transition, right? You got out and you're like, oh, I'm going to get into this. We all been there, and it becomes so easy. It's smooth. And then, it's either just you, but most of the time we forget that it's like someone else pulling the strings. You know what I mean? Like I always forgot it. Everyone gave me the kudos and they patted me on the back and they said, oh, you are such a strong individual. And I forgot that I got through a whole deployment, spending every second of my life praying to God. Every step I took, like every patrol I went on, I prayed before every meal, and that became my identity. My purpose was to live for him. If you want me to walk and fall in an IED, or if I have to jump on a grenade to save my buddy, you run through these scenarios in your head because you hear these stories and when is my number going to be called? And that was my identity for so long. And then when you got hurt, first call I made was to God. And then next thing you know, I'm on like this slow wave of just, ups and downs, and there's so many distractions and there's so much to do and there's so many decisions to make. And there's so many things to numb the things that are going on. And next thing you know, you're 6 months to a year, 5 years, 6 years later, and you forgot, like you said, that the identity and the purpose. And then you stop praying as much and you stop going to church as much. And you start doing all these other things. And a lot of people, like, they'll be like, well, I mean, come on, like, that's just not the answer. Like, just because you pray is not going to make all your problems go away. And like, they're not. But it's going to give you a clearer idea of how to get through them. It's going to give you a clearer understanding of what they are. And I used to always try to solve my problems my way. Like I'd try to fix everything my way. I always tell people like, I struggled with the medication stuff because one, I was on it, I had no choice. And they were like, well, it's not working. So we'll just double it. We'll triple it. So next I was just on it forever.
Kid night.
But there were cheat codes, that's what it is. And so it cheats you out of the real experience of overcoming something. Like when you went to boot camp, you had to do that extra push-up. It hurt so bad, but mentally it got you over the hump. So like that other stuff, like even though I was able to walk again, there was these cheat codes because like my brain and my soul weren't able to connect. So there's this whole system, right? Like you said, we're not going to be able to, like, you get to the end result where like someone wants to take their life, or like they're going to OD on drugs, or they're going to like destroy their life because of this reason. There was 50,000 other steps before that.
That's the end of the path.
That's the end of the path. And then we don't like to we only point fingers at X, Y, and Z at the end when we realize that we lost our way years ago. You lost your direction a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a lot easier though, I think, to say, Well, again, you just lock the guns up. You just hear the signs. I get asked this question a lot. What are the signs? And like we have a book, I don't know where it is, I wrote on suicide, from a biblical perspective. And in that, there are some signs and there are things you need to look for. But you're too late to the game if that's where you are.
I understand that. Yeah.
But that's easy to say, right? It's really hard to live that.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd be the first to tell you that like you could probably live your life like praying to the sky and like hugging trees and stuff and be happy. You could.
Sure. People do.
Yeah, I know some really great dudes who I saw 100-Foot Surfer recently and I love that show, but like those dudes pray to the ocean, they're like, we'll sacrifice our lives to the ocean, but they're happy people.
Sure.
But then like deep down, like they're not.
Yeah. I don't know how happy they are. I think they're very delusional.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, but like on the surface, right. Everything just seems good, but like deep down, no,
right.
There's nothing. And this, I heard you talk about it. I know you believe it. Like there's nothing in the world that can replace that feeling than like the love of Jesus and God. There's nothing else. And I'm not here to like preach it. I know you don't either, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like we're not, I was just listening to so the Wi-Fi was down on the plane. I paid for it. And then the guy, like I'm struggling and I'm like, whatever, I'm going to give up. Let me just listen to the songs I have on my phone. And of course it's mostly Christian music.
Yeah.
And the voice of truth comes on and I hear it. And it was interesting because I just was thinking, like, what do we talk about? Like, I was like run it through my head, not like I care, but like, what would we talk about?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we could always go this way and this way. And like, well, the one story I always like to talk about, like as far as military guys in faith, is like Peter, like getting out of that boat, going out to see him on the water.
Yeah.
And, like, just, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? And he starts walking and he loses that tiny little, losing that little direction, that little like sight, that little bit of faith. Makes him sink, and he reaches out to him, grabs him. He's like, I've always got you. And then the voice of truth comes on, and it's like the words to that thing that I had in my head. And I'm like, that's God talking to you. Like it all lines up. And I started smiling and I'm like, well, I still don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'll bring it up eventually, And,
that was good.
Yeah. And it just makes sense, right? Like it's the only thing that makes sense. And it got me through deployment. It got me through the lower parts of my recovery. The highs are easy because you don't really need, you don't think you need God when it's high,
No.
But then you go through these waves, and it wasn't until recently where I almost destroyed my life again, all that stuff just for stupid mistakes that you're like, you know what? It's me or nothing else. That's it. You can't choose, you can't choose to come in when you feel like it.
Yeah.
You can't call me whenever you feel like it.
Yeah.
It's a loving, unconditional love. Like I'm going to be here no matter what, but I want you to come in no matter what. I love you. So you got to have it all the way.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I mentioned to you that yesterday, Sean Kennard, who you've talked to.
Yes.
He's typically
awesome
the co-host on the show. He's been out for a little while. We did an episode with him yesterday. But we were just talking about this concept of faith, and unless things are uncertain or unclear or difficult or challenging, there's really not a need for faith.
Yeah.
And like you said, when things are going well, you don't need that. And so I think it's just human nature, but God keeps us in those places where we realize how frail we are, how needy we are. And we try to run away from that. And this is what bothers me often about how the Veterans Administration and others treat mental issues and emotional issues and the challenges that men and women have when they come back from, whatever their combat environment was or the military environment, they're transitioning. It's let's take away the pain. Let's numb away the emotional, challenges that you're having right now. We can just remove it. Well, if you remove that, then you never address it and you never deal with it, and you're not helping yourself. You're just preventing something that eventually you're going to have to deal with, and it's going to be a really hard drop when you do.
Right. No, absolutely. And so, like, it's interesting you brought that up because, like, as dog trainers, like, you could do that. You could avoid things. It's like, oh, my dog has an issue with this. Yeah. Like, I have a lady who, when I trained service dogs with her in the Wounded Warrior Battalion, she, she was like, makes a joke about it. She's like, you want your dog to stop, barking at the doorbell? Get rid of the doorbell.
Stop ringing the doorbell.
Put a sign up that says, go around the back. Don't touch my doorknob, whatever. And it's like, you cut it out, right? And like that does work. But like you said, it's like, they're kind of like temporary fixes, right?
Eventually you're going to have to deal with the issue.
Like if you had, like, that's like saying like, oh, my foot hurts really bad, but instead of rehabbing, I'm going to cut my foot off, that's fine. You can live that way, but that's a choice you make. It's much better to like push to the pain, and rehab it. Or like what I had to deal with, and this is like what set me back a lot, was like, I've been super blessed, and I talk about it all the time, where I'd be blessed to have arms and legs. I'd be blessed to have most of my fingers and like being able to do normal things. Yeah. But then there'd be that tiny little thing, that little lie in my head that goes like, oh, you could run faster. Or if you weren't hurt, you could throw a bowling ball without getting your finger stuck. Like, all these little things, that, like they're stupid things, but like that's that lie, that little, the stupid devil on your shoulder, they did that cartoon for a reason, so, and then it would just dig you down into this hole, because that's what the devil loves. He loves wins, know, and then you beat yourself up. Then if you're locked in your house, like I was for a certain time, just like drinking all day on the ground, just underneath, the world, not caring, he loves that. Because you're not out there working for God, like he loves when you do that, and it's easy. Then you can do that forever until you want to make it worse and worse and worse.
So what would you tell someone who, whether it's because of the military or not, but they're dealing with grief, they're dealing with loss, they're dealing with perhaps a traumatic event that maybe that brought the grief and the loss, maybe it didn't, maybe it's just something else they're dealing with. They're dealing with the uncertainty of transition. They're in that place where figuratively or literally they're sitting on the ground drinking every day, trying to numb away the pain. What would you say to that person? How does that person get up off the ground and begin moving forward in a meaningful way? I mean, this is what we talk about here, right? Is you can give up if you want, that's death, or you can take the next step. You can march, you can take the next step. But man, that first next step is most often the hardest. So what do you say to that person? You think about them in your mind. They're sitting on the floor. They're numbing away their pain. They're mad at everybody. They've made it impossible to be around. What do they need to do to get up and get going?
I do this myself, and I have done it. But I think the first thing that you have to do, and you might do this instinctively, is you have to make that first phone call to God. Because you're going to feel so dark, and you're going to feel like whether, like you said, you're curled up on the ground in a fetal position, or you're just sitting at like just sitting and you're zoning out because you miss somebody, or that tear starts to get, or you feel getting choked up because you miss your mom or dad or something. You just say, God, help me get through this pain initially. Because like it's a real pain. Don't look to get rid of it. Don't look to ignore it. Because what that pain is just shows how much you love that person. That's all that is. Because all you are missing is love. So it's not necessarily that you're sad they're gone. You hurt so much because how much you love them to begin with. If you didn't, like when you lose things in life that you didn't love, you don't care. Like you don't grieve them as much.
Right.
Like you're one friend that like you don't talk to anymore since high school. You don't cry about it because you guys weren't really that friends, But when you think back to your first heart dog, or maybe you lost your dad at a young age, or maybe you were super close to your grandmother and she died, or whatever the loss is, you're gonna feel this like gut feeling, and you're like sickening, and all that is like this piece of love that was there. It's a memory, hold on to that. And then just remember that that's a good thing. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
So the goal is not to get rid of that.
Correct.
It's to just understand what it is.
I think that you should be able to absorb it. There's a difference between people like holding on to it and like walking around but that's different. The initial thing is to just know that this is good. This feeling is good. And then call it to God. And like, if you don't get over it in 2 seconds, you call it to God. Like, God, just help me get through this. Like, thank you for having these memories. Like I'm very thankful when I get to these moments of like dark grief, because like showing gratitude for even knowing that person,
that's good.
I lost my buddy Max overseas. We weren't great friends, but he was one of our brothers, and he was the first handler killed in Afghanistan. And that hit me hard because I've heard about death over there. We've had guys die, but to have like one of your brothers die, like it became personal, and I felt this loss. But I remember staring up at his leash, which was the last thing that he touched, and it was draped over the soldier's cross. And I remember staring at it and almost feeling like he was in the room. Yeah. And it was like, we're going to go out and work for him. Like, we're going to continue working dogs for him. Like, his legacy will carry on through every leash. And it just made his death feel good. And it wasn't like we're on, it's not a good thing at all. Like, I see his mom at reunions and we cry, but I just knowing that I knew him, it's an honor. It becomes an honor.
It's valuing that life.
Yes.
By living a valuable life.
Correct.
I'm going to value him, and I'm going to honor him by living in a way that will honor him and put value on him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I struggled so much with this story because it was something like initially I didn't want to like write a book. I didn't want to like, but my idea wasn't get out and go, I'm going to tell this to the world and write a book. Yeah. You go to therapy and, they try to do all these different methods. I stared at the lights going back and forth and, to try to hypnotize me and all this stuff. And I laugh about that, but then they go, can you write down the incident? Like sometimes writing helps, like try to write it. And of course, God willing, I remember the entire incident, you know, in detail, interestingly enough. So I wrote down 6-7 pages in a story, told it to her. She's crying. She's like, go write a book, you know?
Right.
And so it turned into a book. I had a journal overseas. So I had stories like, you know, if we had pop shots or Max died, and I wrote about the feelings of grief. And so those two things became this story. Then I came up with the title, which was Surviving with Grief. So it talks about multiple different things. But the whole idea was that I felt horrible telling these stories, right? Like I felt like I was, in a weird way, like these aren't things you should talk about, right? I juggled with that. Like, oh, I should just lock it away. Like I should, don't hold on to the past, like all this stuff. And then I remember that famous quote that says like, you know, we all die once and then we die again when you stop saying their name. So the only way that these stories will get told, the only way that people know how Stephen was right before he was killed and, you know, what grief meant to me, all that stuff, you know? So when you feel like when you feel upset about like that job you used to have, or like you missing your parents or whoever passed away in your life, talk about them. Even like tell those stories at holidays. You know, and if it hurts, that's good. It's supposed to be good. So don't think you're going crazy. Like it's not a bad thing.
You honor them.
And if you feel like that stuck feeling and you feel like you're getting too deep into it, that's when you call out to God and be like, God, just take that pain away from me. And He will. He'll slap it right up. Be like, hey, you know, you're okay. I got you. Like they're up here with me. Like relax.
There's a difference between allowing that grief to become your identity, which we talked about, or becoming a victim to that event or that grief. Like now this is just, my whole world is wrapped up in that thing that happened to me and I can't go forward without it. There's a difference between those two things and really living in light of that, learning the lessons that you can learn. And we don't tell the stories. The 5th Marine Association, you know, which I'm a part of, their tagline is, your stories will never go untold. Right. And that's, you know, why do we exist, or why do they exist? To tell these stories so people aren't forgotten. And that's so important, but it's important not just to tell the stories or to get together with friends and have something to talk about, but so that you can live and honor those people. And it's super important. It puts a whole different perspective on loss and grief though.
Yes. Yeah. I think so. And I think I'd say, I don't know if it's like Charlie Brown or wherever I heard this, like grief is good, or good grief. Good grief. Yeah.
Charlie Brown.
Good grief,
all the time.
So, I mean, it is. Grief is good. You know, it's the last chapter of my book is good grief. Like that's it. It's all good. You know, it's going to suck. It's going to hurt. But yeah. And then like, I noticed like just telling the stories, like I feel horrible sometimes because he was my first real loss. Like, you know, I lost grandparents growing up. Like my friend moved across the street and I cried, you know, like, you know, he's like, I'm moving. I'm like, where? He's like 2 miles away, you know, but as a kid that like ruined your life. But so I lost things, but it was the first time I lost something that I loved, you know, a lot. Like I fell in love with this dog. He was with me with a lot going on overseas and we were best buds. So when I lost him, it was the first time I felt that hole in my heart, you know, so I can't compare it to someone who loses a parent young, or like if your parents, you know, to split, and I always say parents because that's the most probably hardest thing to go through, or sibling or best friend. And especially in traumatic ways too, that always has a lot of weight to it too. You know, I hear sometimes like, oh, my grandmother died. She was 104. I'm like, well, she was, she should have been up there anyway, you know,
lived a good life.
She lived a good life, you know? So, but yeah, it was, you know, you got to like really understand that like that hole is what made you love that person to begin with. And like, he taught me how to love, you know what I mean? I know what it feels like. I can wait to it. I'll tell a story. I'll tell my speech. I might talk on the subject. Someone will come up to me right after and be like, I just lost my mom 2 weeks ago. And like, that's a huge weight for me to like hear. And I feel like I can't touch this, you know what I mean? That's not my responsibility. But then they say, just hearing your story makes me feel like I'm not alone in this. It makes me feel like I can talk about it to you, a stranger, you know, and that's why I do it. Like I absolutely love being able to allow people to feel open. And I don't know if it's just my vulnerability. And I think that's what, like you said, telling these stories, like a lot of guys struggle with. My war story is not good enough. Like there's no such thing. There's war stories that like shouldn't be talked about, you know, like when I saw my buddy in the chow hall, he goes, yo, did you hear about Max? And I'm like, well, no one's bragging about, you know, their fines or like how many people they killed. So whenever you hear that, it's a bad thing, right? Like most war stories are bad. Then the ones we tell each other around campfire stories, like that's where it gets crazy. Like, oh yeah, I was getting shot at, man. I almost got hit. My buddy almost shot me in the back. You know, but like that it just makes it feel normal again, because like when we were in those moments, we didn't talk, right? When you got off a mission, did you sit back, you debriefed, but you weren't like, oh, that was crazy that we just killed 4 people, you know, you don't have that. So then you don't bring it up. And then there's like that weird feeling down the road, like, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about this, or like, well, my story's not good enough to you. We compare each other, you know? Yeah.
The reality that you deal with it now or you deal with it later, though, eventually sets in on you, you know, and in the military, you're very good because you're in that community of people who kind of get it. You're very good at either not talking about it, or there's that, you know, very dark humor, and there's ways of talking about it that probably aren't healthy, but they feel good in the moment. But then eventually you're alone and you're wondering, you know, what does all this mean and what should I do with it? So you tell the stories. You understand that grief is not bad. You know, it's part of, it's okay. It can be good. It's because I cared about those people or that person. You tell the stories, you get up, begin to move forward. All this starts really with understanding that God has a plan and you're calling out to him. How important is community and all of that for you?
I would say extremely important, if not number one. It's like they always say, you know, I think like if you look at like the programs, like addicts and stuff, they're always like, you know, surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I don't even know the steps, but like one of them is probably cut bad people out of your life, you know,
probably,
you know, like delete those numbers.
Right.
So I think it's like and I just said this on another, whatever it was, but I think it's like, cause I got a similar question, but I think it's probably the most important because aside from us talking about calling out to God and having that faith foundation, which is the most important part, that's just the foundation. But like the immediate circle around you, I think is more important, because like I was this individual who had my life together. You know, like you said, you went through these similar feelings when you got out, but it probably wasn't until you got some nudge or support or guidance from the right individuals to help you get there, right? Like you can't do it yourself, because if you could, nobody would need help and everybody would be just on a autopilot to heaven, you know? So like you're gonna need help from somebody, you know, whether you're in therapy, someone's pushing you up or like they're driving you, like you're gonna need help. And then like I struggled with asking for help, and I struggled with recognizing which help was beneficial and which wasn't, right?
That's good.
Like, hey man, keep doing it, man. Keep doing you. And that would feed my ego. But then like, you know, some other people would be like, hey, you should really try this instead. That was really helping me. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that. You know, so like you have to surround yourself with the right people. There's a difference between supporters and enablers. But a community is huge. One of the roommates I had in the hospital, like I said, he was next to someone who was blown up. He was stuck there for months. And his room was decorated. He had like an Xbox, you know, I was jealous of him. I'm like, man, he was cool. But
he
then
was living there.
My dad's like, well, no, don't be jealous. Like he's living here. Like he doesn't get visitors. Like whatever the reason was, he didn't get the visitors. Like my dad lived there with my wife, not together, but they had separate. But they lived there for months, like weeks. And my family would visit on the weekends. I had visitors, and my dad would go play video games with this kid and talk to him, you know, be like, hey, what's going on? He's like, nothing, you know, and he would tell jokes, my dad jokes with him, but he had nobody. And like, next thing you know, he's there for months. So that's extremely important to have that support. You know, that community around you is everything.
What do you do to help your family as you're coming through, you're processing the trauma, you're processing the grief, you're processing the hurt, physical injuries, you're dealing with all of that. So that's happening. You need to be in the right place, the right mindset with the right people, but also you have a wife, you have parents, other family members that want to help you. And, you know, we see this again and again and again. That's when often the veteran, you know, the person who's been hurt pushes the most important people away and damages relationships, does sometimes irreparable harm to these relationships with people who sincerely love them and care for them and would do anything for them. How can you, as you're coming through that on your own, you're dealing with it, you're processing it, how can you help or support the people who have been supporting you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you mean like, how can you
help your wife? How can you help your dad who's been at your hospital bed, who's been struggling through this with you? But all of us, when we struggle, we think we're alone, right? And like, oh, I'm the one that was hurt. I'm the one that was, you know, abandoned or had a loss or am dealing with grief. I'm the one. Well, then you've got these people who are not leaving your bedside. How do you bridge the gap so that it's us and not just, you know, me and I'm pushing you out?
It's very hard. And I don't know if anybody not experiences this, but me and my wife talk about this all the time. It's that it's always about me. You know what I mean? It's always been about me,
Yeah.
right? Like, sometimes I think it's like it was easier for like someone like my dad because he's like weird, like he loves stuff like that. Like he'll live at a hospiel, like he loves the food, he loves taking care of people. Like, oh, he's not that sick, like but like my wife, I remember like they would take shifts and like he'd be there in the morning to do work and she'd come in and they would just be taking because it's hard to sit there at the bedside, and answering questions about doctors and signing papers for you because your hands don't work. And, but it was always about me.
Yeah.
They don't come in and ask some of them would. They'd ask how you're doing and make sure she was taken care of. But like she would just get up and run through the hospital one morning, 5:30 in the morning to come greet me at the elevator before they rushed me into a surgery. They couldn't wait, but they made it. And all these little tiny sacrifices, just living in there,
it's incredible.
And then when it's over, like they might get like a little bit of freedom back and then like it's little bits at a time. But then like anytime something comes up or there's always something big, it always comes back to you. And then I struggled with that. Like it was always like, well, things would have been different if I didn't get hurt. Things would have been different if I didn't have you sacrifice this. And they don't get any of the recognition.
Right.
That's why I talk about it a little bit in my story, but and that's why everyone's, she doesn't agree, but she's like, stop talking about me. I'm like, but you're a very important part of this. Yeah. Like I wanted to tell her perspective in the book.
Yeah.
Because the wives don't get enough credit. The mothers don't get enough credit, because we go over there, we do our job.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy.
Yeah.
Like you said, your life didn't get hard until you got out, and then when we get back, that's when it's tough, but they have to deal with horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And then they don't get any of the credit.
Right.
And the only way I can say, and it's much easier said than done, but you have to just live the best version of yourself. Like they made those sacrifices, like just like the guys who were killed over there.
Yeah.
That happened so you can live a good life.
Yeah.
So by you lying to them, by you cutting corners, by you, drinking your day away, getting angry at them for no reason, that is throwing all that out the window.
It dishonors everything they've done to support you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like whether it's your buddy overseas or your mother or wife who sat by the bedside, like you can't resent any of that because that's the notice stuff. And it's not a transactional thing. Like it's not like I did this for you, you did this for me.
Of course,
this that unconditional love we're talking about. But like you start to feel that resentment when it's just one-sided, right? Like it's always about me, it's always about her. But the only way I can say it, and I've struggled with it until like most recently, was you can be honest about things, but then there's certain things you don't want to be honest about, right? Like you try to spare them, like the feelings of what you're dealing with. Yeah. We try to be the man and sometimes we'll lie about how we feel because we want to shield them from things. And I did it a lot. And like I had I think personality and the faith to like eat it a little bit more, but it still eats at your soul. And not only that, you're doing them a dishonest justice because you're not being 100% honest with them. And even though you're sparing them, you're still not having that connection. You're not bridging that gap. And that's the issue. That's the real problem. It's not like the fact that you're shielding them from something. That's probably a good thing, right? Yeah. Like you don't want, it's like when we're overseas, hey, someone died, everyone turn away. I don't want you to look at that, right? Like, so it's the same thing, but you're hurting the relationship by not being honest. And I didn't know that, but now I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm telling her like, hey, look, I actually feel a little weird today. I'm feeling a little itchy. Yeah. Like I'm feeling down. Like, and in the past I would just drink these feelings away, but now I just tell you like, I feel like, what do you feel down for?
Yeah.
Like stop it, whatever. And we'd step out of it 5 minutes later, we're 5 steps ahead than where we would have been, right? Instead of just,
that's good.
Crawling through the mud.
A lot of that goes back to the community question too, right? If you talk to your wife about what you're struggling with, that's not the same as putting her in a position where she has to fix that for you.
Right.
It's just letting her know that I'm struggling with this, but I have a community of people. I have some people that are close to me that can help me get back on my feet or figure this out or, work through this. I'm not asking you to fix it. I just want you to know where I am and where I'm coming from.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, like you said, it's that honesty thing. And then that's that sense of like feeling, because like they want to help. Like, and then deep down, like they want to feel it's a team,
That's why they were sitting next to your bed while you're in the hospital. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which was easier. That was easy because that was an easy decision for her. Yeah. Just like me getting better was an easy decision. Yeah. But when it's these little things and like so I realized is like I messed up in life when there was too much leeway, right? Like when there's too much left or right, it's easy to get lost. But when you're just walking on a one-way street towards something, it's easy. But then when you have all these detour signs and stuff, it's like too many choices, too much left or right, wiggle room. And I realized that that's the issue is when you start to veer off track, you start to think you can take control of your life, you take the wheel, all that stuff. And then it's not until you're, like I said, 100% honest, aim upward, and then just forward. Those bad things will happen, like the bumps in the road will happen.
Of course.
Detours will come up, but if you're doing them together, then it's a much different experience.
That's great. Man, that's great. Talk about the book a little bit. I think we've talked about a lot of the things that are in the book, but where can people get it and what can they expect from it? What is your hope, as people purchase it, pick it up when you wrote it? What was your hope?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have handed it to you. I have it. I gave it to you, but
that's all right.
Yeah, and but sometimes I hate it too because sometimes it gets cheesy. So it's like, oh, here, grab this. Like we look like a bunch of TikTokers or something. Like
we'll do that later.
Yeah, I like it more personal too. Yeah, but yeah. So no, I like I said, it started in therapy. It turned into this giant monster. I came up with the title. I played with some ideas and I wrote down surviving with grief because most of the stories happened when I survived with him, the dog. And obviously when I was hurt, it was talking about surviving with the emotion of grief,
right.
Cause it's a horrible dog name, but he lived up to his legacy, came into the office and told my staff, he's like, that's freaking awesome, dude. Do it, get it done. And I spent decades doing it, like 10 years or so. And then I was doing real estate. We try everything, right? I was doing different things, and real estate was the worst thing that ever happened to me, just because it fed into my ego and drove me down this bad path. And then when COVID hit and the market went bonkers, I'm like, I'm over it. Yeah. So I dove headfirst into the book, and then after you're done drinking for a year in COVID, then you're like, okay, let me really work on the book. Yeah. In 2023, I released it. So 23, it's 100% out there. It's on Amazon. Yeah. I did a self-publishing route. I mean, I don't know if you've done that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you did.
I've done both.
So easy. Yeah. You just get on there. As long as everything's tight T's are crossed, and you just hit
People
publish.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to get touched. The publishing route, they like to touch everything. It's like, well, I like the way you wrote this, but I think it sounds better if you jumped in front of the ID and saved your life.
Definitely have opinions. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times they'll screw something up, and they'll read an article and be like, the dog saved him from the IED. I'm like, no, he didn't. He was next to me. That was it. But so it's on Amazon. If you order it now with your toilet paper, it'll be there tomorrow or whatever. Yeah. So be fast. There's Kindle and then hardcover. It takes a while. And then obviously the next monster is the audiobook, so
you're working on it.
I tried to. Despite how much I look like I like doing this, I hate the sound of my voice. I hate it. Like as soon as you hear something back,
reading your whole book.
Then reading your whole book. Yeah. So I did chapter 1, and I'm I even just posted it because I'm trying to do content too. I'm sure that's a monster you had to get over is putting yourself on the internet and promoting everything. Yeah, I hate it.
We've got some good people around here who make it possible.
Well, that's what's good too. Yeah. I'm just recording myself, and I try to do a little snippet, and then everyone's like, "Why do you sound like a narrator?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Isn't that what you're supposed to sound like?" Yeah. I'm like, he jumped over the wall.
Yeah, the authenticity part. Yeah.
It's weird. And they're like, just sound normal. And I'm like, how do you read normal? And because you hear the audiobooks, right? Yeah. They sound like that. Yeah. They're like, he walked in the ground.
Or you just pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I don't want.
Someone else who can read.
Yeah. I know. I don't know. Because everyone, so anyway, just to clear the air, I don't have Tourette's. When I do those accents, my staff sergeant's from Alabama. So I know I did that 5 times. So people are probably like, this kid's got a tick.
I didn't even notice it. So.
You didn't notice the accent or the tick?
Yeah, both.
Oh.
Or whatever.
You're a Marine, he's probably got issues. This dude's probably got.
You're like
he looked a little too normal.
You're like everybody else I talk to. So yeah, no, that's cool, man. Man, I appreciate it. Being willing to just be vulnerable and open, and we don't like to talk about our struggles. We all like to talk about our successes. I think that's why combat veterans have such a hard time, because we love talking about the cool stories, and people like to hear those, but. Man, on the backside of those, there's a lot of pain and hurt, and how do you deal with that? So,
yeah, and that's why that's what was important for me about the book was that I didn't have a cool story, it wasn't
Well, getting blown up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not everybody that has that story.
And a lot of people get blown up, but I think the miracle for me was that a lot of the guys, at least I know or talk to, they get blown up and they don't know. The stories are they wake up in launch stool or Bagram.
Right.
There's a lot of the stories you hear. It's like, oh, I got knocked out. Next thing I know, I'm dead. And so I was somehow blessed enough to remember the entire thing. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. There's some trauma that I've also experienced in my life where it'll happen and then I know what they're talking about. Yeah. And I think sometimes God does it on purpose. He'll block it out to save you. For that. So there's a reason why I remembered it. And I that's part's cool, but most of the other stuff, you read the book, pretty this kid's a wimp. You know what I mean? I'm oh, I don't want to die. I talk about the NVGs and it's too dark and I hated the weapon bouncing off my leg.
Yeah, you're probably just being more honest than most people.
Right, and
'Cause
that's
I think most of us live right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, and I think, but that's what I heard is like, dude, like that's funny. I felt the same way. You know, like I tell a story like where I shot it. The only shot I had, like I shot a dog and I killed it, and as a dog handler, that was like the worst thing that ever happened to me. And so I talk about like crying. I'm holding grief. I'm crying my eyes out. I told the snipers I'm with, I'm like, dude, you guys are killing dogs from now on. They're like, yeah, let's go. You know,
they didn't want to either though. That's the thing, right? Well, like nobody wanted, maybe go for the Marines.
They were ready to pull the trigger. Yeah. Because we were in an area where they weren't pulling the, you know what I mean? You get trigger happy, but.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's funny because we all want to project this. I'm not afraid of anything. Nothing bothers me. Like, it's just war. But, you know, normal people aren't really that way.
No.
I mean, we like to project that, but that's not the reality for most people.
Right.
So,
yeah, we're normal people. I mean, what's that saying? Like normal people who do extraordinary things or something. Like, yeah, just normal people. Like,
you find yourself in a strange environment and you do what you have to.
Right.
And so, yeah. Well, man, thanks for sharing. That's super awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. Thanks for coming all the way from New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, when are you coming to do that talk?
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll schedule it.
That's
Maybe I'll
we can make
schedule
it up. Yeah.
I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah, we have to let me know.
Because now I have a reason to go to New Jersey.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not that bad. See, that's what's funny. Every time I in the Marine Corps, everyone's like, "Oh, Jersey." I'm like, "You're talking about Newark Airport." Like they're like, "Oh, it's just a power plant. It's the armpit of the country." I'm like,
I've been to that.
It's exactly. There. Everyone's been to Newark Airport.
Yeah,
they look out the window. They go, "This place sucks." I'm like, I can say the same about Houston when I get out.
It is called the Garden State, right?
The Garden State. Yeah, it's mostly tomatoes and I mean, you have the Jersey Shore though.
We'll see.
You have the Jersey Shore with the fist pumping.
Yeah.
You know, the MTV stuff.
I don't know. We'll see.
You got to go see that.
We'll see what we do.
Yeah. No, it's I drive that 105 here. It was beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It's churches and guns.
Yeah. It's Texas.
Every red light.
It's Texas. That's all we
It's like Church of Christ, the first Church of Christ, Church of Second Christ. And it was like guns.
And there are a lot of places to shoot.
Yeah. I love it, man. It's been great. I appreciate you having me on.
No, thank you. For those of you listening, thank you for listening. Please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening from, and then hit YouTube. Again, search for March or Die, the March or Die Show. You'll find us there. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.